On today's Locked On Bulls, we'll be discussing the Mavs being a potential sign and trade option for the Chicago Bulls as they look to put another piece around Luka Doncic. We'll also be continuing our draft profiles, this time on Jalen Williams, and we'll be finishing the show discussing the Eastern Conference Finals. All that and more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily podcast on the Chicago Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bulls, your daily podcast covering the Chicago Bulls. Locked On Bulls is a member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central, where I cover the Bulls every single day. It's like I do on this platform, but a little bit different. Today, it's just me solo. Pat the designer is out. His brother got married, so much needed time off, well-deserved time off for Pat the designer. So shouts out to Pat. Hopefully he's there celebrating his brother getting married and didn't drink too much at the reception. But I'll keep the dramatic pause game going for Pat the designer as he's out. You guys already know. Gotta throw some fun at my host. But we're going to start off today's episode talking about the Dallas Mavericks now emerging as a potential sign and trade option for the Chicago Bulls. Now, this conversation has started ever since really the Mavs got eliminated from the playoffs because, Luka does need some help, and it makes sense naturally that conversation go towards Zach LaVine. Now, the one thing with this is that at least in the way that the conversation's been around this so far, is that they present it as a sign and trade being focused around Jalen Brunson. Now, that is actually going to be very difficult. You guys know what I like to do here is I like to separate the talk from reality and what could happen here. If you guys follow me over on Chicago Bulls Central, you know this is what I do. While having these discussions as fans is all one thing, and it'll go left. You even hear some national media people talk about things that just aren't allowed within the CBA. So one thing to note here with a Jalen Brunson being focused on the sign and trade is that the Mavs only can get back 50% of the salary of whatever the contract that Jalen Brunson signs. So if he signs a $20 million deal elsewhere, in this case, we're talking about if it being the Chicago Bulls in a sign and trade, they can only get back $10 million in salary in that trade. So that really wouldn't. Well, I guess they could offset it with using other contracts, but again, it'll only be 10% worth of what Jalen Brunson's contract is. So they would have to add in. You look at Zach LaVine with another team signing. I know with us it's a $30 million contract. I believe if it's any other team, it's like between that 28 and 26 and $28 million range. So because of that, the Dallas Mavericks would have to add in an additional $18 million in anything that they do if Jalen Brunson's the focus around that trade. Now, I know a lot of us, we like Maxi Kleber. I do like him as a potential person to be thrown in any signing trade if it does involve Zach LaVine. But listen, this conversation is really all for naught. This is one of those things where I think, in my personal opinion, I do think that it's getting some steam only because it kind of makes sense, right? Zach LaVine, one of the biggest free agent names out there right now. A lot of conversation going around if he's going to stay, if he's going to go when it comes to the Chicago Bulls, and because they are looking for some improvement around Luka Doncic, that it all makes sense. I don't think that there's anything here because even when you look at it, Jalen Brunson is a 6'1" point guard who, don't get me wrong, put up amazing numbers, especially when you look at him being able to get 4.6 rebounds per game this last season at being 6'1". That shows heart, hustle, and determination right there. 3.7 assists, 21.6 points per game, has played that point guard and shooting guard role for the Dallas Mavericks, and he's just a heck of a basketball player. Especially looking at Jalen Brunson as somebody, in my opinion, to really be a spark plug coming off the bench, rather than just somebody to replace Zach LaVine in that starting lineup. It kind of makes some sense, right? I can honestly say, and I can separate, while I don't think that this deal is likely, I can honestly say that, hey, this may be one of the more deals that make sense, especially if you throw in a Maxi Kleber. Tim Hardaway Jr.'s contract's way too high. But there's some things to be done around it if it did come to this. But realistically, is this something that we see happening? I don't see it. Like I said, this is the NBA. Anything is possible, and as we know, once teams are motivated to do something, there's always a way to make it happen in the NBA. If you have two teams that are both willing to make it happen, yes. And the thing is that yes, this is a sign and trade, and usually with sign and trades, that you don't have a lot of um the team losing the better player usually doesn't have a lot of leeway, but in this case, the Bulls would. Right now, the Dallas Mavericks have 151 $1 million committed in salaries for next season. That's before signing anyone else. Now, one of the things with this that I found interesting in researching this is that the Dallas Mavericks have not paid the luxury tax since 2011. But you see how they've still been able to put in a hell of a team. But like so would is signing Zach LaVine for the Dallas Mavericks something that Mark Cuban, who has not paid the luxury tax in 10 years, 11 years at this point, because that would easily send them into the luxury tax. Easily. And that's before they do anything else to improve any other spots on that roster. And maybe they don't do anything else. Maybe well, considering the amount that they would have to give up for Zach LaVine, because it's not going to be a Jalen Brunson, Zach LaVine sign and trade, dual sign and trade one for one that makes things work. Um, they're going to have to include other players. So they're probably going to be looking to fill out the rest of the roster with veteran minimum players at that point. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to completely dismiss the idea or dismiss the possibility, because it's absolutely a possibility of it having. When you just look at the contracts to kind of make it work out, Jalen Brunson, as I said, even if he signs a $20 million contract in the sign and trade, they can only bring back $10 million in that in salary back to him. So they would have to include like Maxi Kleber, who makes about $8.5 million, I think. So at that point, you still have an additional $10 million to have to include in there to make it all work. So it's going to take some salary cap maneuvering, but then at that point, like I said, the Mavs are easily going to be into the cap more than likely. When you look at them having to then replace also the players that they sent out, um, I don't know, man. I don't know. Listen, like I said, this is one of those deals where I can't completely crap on the idea. As much as I would want to, you can't. And this is going to be the summer of Zach LaVine rumors. Don't be like, there's going to be other things that pop up. Like, as we continue to go into the summer, like free agent, like Zach LaVine can't officially start talking to other teams, I think, until July 1st. So we still got over a month until that can even happen. And then the opening of free agency isn't until the end of July, beginning of August. So we got quite a bit of time left, and there's going to be a lot more rumors. But this is the one that and I love Luka Doncic, and I really like the Dallas Mavericks, and the way that their playoff series ended, it did suck. I want to see more for them, and Luka does need some help, but it doesn't need to come by the chance of Zach LaVine. And speaking of Zach LaVine, let's get some focus back on the Zach LaVine side of things. It seems like there's been more conversation going around with that same national media that, hey, the Bulls are going to offer him a max contract. So that right there separates that. There's a $55 million difference between him and any other team at that point in time, which we all knew was going to happen. And it seems like they are very much focused on being able to bring Zach LaVine back. Now, if they put the full court press on Zach LaVine, I still do think it's more than likely that Zach LaVine is going to be back on the Chicago Bulls roster. I know a lot of people aren't thinking that. And, hey, as much PTSD as we have as Bulls fans, listen, anything is possible. Until Zach LaVine signs on that dotted line, anything is possible. But them offering him the full max deal that they can offer him, I mean, that's them putting themselves in the best position possible, right? That's this front office saying, "Hey, we're doing what we can, and that's giving you the max contract. We can't do anything that. Is it going to have injury-based incentives, anything like that in it? That's what remains to be seen. But and there's still a possibility. There's still the possibility that Zach LaVine signs a shorter deal. Now, I don't think that makes as much sense, especially considering the offseason knee surgery, even though it wasn't major, but just the knee issues that may pop up later in his career. For him to sign a 2+1 deal, and then he can get even more money on that next extension. So, and Clutch Sports has done things like that before. Does it make sense for Zach LaVine, who would then at that point be in his 30-year-old season? I mean, we saw, for example, DeMar DeRozan get a hell of a contract towards the back end of his career. So anything is possible. And just leave your eyes open, because this offseason when it comes to Zach LaVine could potentially either get really, really crazy with possibilities of shorter term deals. Then we got to worry in 3 years again when it comes to Zach LaVine and what the team can do to prove to him to stay in 3 years. It could just get very, very interesting. But that's it on the Mavs. Let me know down below, what do you guys think about the Mavs potential sign and trade? I would like it to be built around Brunson and Maxi Kleber as just even to start the conversation. But let me know what other players on the Mavs roster you would be interested in a sign and trade if it gets to that. But I got to talk to you guys about BetOnline. Now, BetOnline is the number one source for all your betting needs. Find all the latest betting odds, news, and sports development, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, beautiful people. I don't know why I always say beautiful people, because listen, there could very well be some ugly people watching the show. And if there is, listen, we love you guys just the same. Ugly, beautiful, indifferent, or in between. It really doesn't matter. If you're tuned in to Locked On Bulls and listening to Locked On Bulls, you are family. And because you're family, you're beautiful in some type of way, right? So I guess the beautiful people thing does hold true in that case. But we're now going to transition into our draft player profiles. And I say we, and it's just me. Listen, it's just me. It's us. I guess it's me and you guys. We're doing this together. But Jalen, no, not Jalen Brunson, from one Jalen to another, which has me confused. We're going to Jalen Williams, and this is the Jalen Williams from Santa Clara, the shooting guard. I believe we already covered the other Jalen Williams. I may be confused on that. I've been doing so much draft coverage on so many different places that it has me a little bit confused. But Jalen Williams, 6'6", 210-pound shooting guard, played in Santa Clara. He's a junior coming out. He's really projected to be late first round. So he would more than likely be available there for the Chicago Bulls at pick 18. Now, some of the things that he brings is that, listen, that's legit size, right? To have that, be 6'6", 210 pounds, especially, you look at while he's in the NBA, he can definitely tune up some. But he's a long guard. He has a ridiculous wingspan for his height. He has a 7'2" wingspan, which is crazy. His wingspan is 6 inches taller than what his height would be. So he projects to be a pretty solid and have the ability to have some solid defensive skills. Now, we have seen players before with length and height that don't really turn out defensively as you would think, but he's already shown some of that capability already. Just to go over some of his stats, every year he got better in college basketball. And he's one of those players as well. And this is one of the things that I look at, and you guys know, since we've been doing this draft coverage, I really do focus in on, is that with more minutes, does your efficiency get better? And we can say that with Jalen Williams, that his efficiency absolutely got better. We look at his freshman year, in which he played 33 games. He played 25.5 minutes per game, and he shot the ball at 43% from the 2-point range and 35% from the 3-point range. He averaged 7.7 points, 1 assist, and 1.3 steals per game as a freshman in college. Now, you come to his sophomore year. He only played 18 games, but he played 31 minutes per game. His field goal percentage was 39%. His 3-point percentage was 27.4%, and he averaged about 11.5 points per game. His rebounding went up with 4.1 rebounds per game. Assists went up with 2.3 assists per game, and it still stayed about the same at 1.2. And then you move over to his last season in college basketball. And while the averages aren't anything, I do like to present it because it's a full picture. You can see how a player progressed. In his junior year, he did play 33 games again. So a full season there. His minutes went up to 34.8 minutes per game. His field goal attempts went up to 12.9 field goal attempts per game. And he shot that at an even better percentage at 51%. Overall field goal percentage from the field. His 3-point attempts went up as well, and he averaged 3.2 3-point attempts at a 39, basically a 40% clip, is what he hit those 3-pointers at. Free throw percentage, great, 80%. He's been a great free throw shooter his whole career. Again, rebounding, 4.4 rebounds per game. Assists went up again with 4.2 assists per game, and then still stayed the same at 1.2 steals per game. Listen, Jalen Williams is a player, while older, he'll be 21 years old. He just turned 21 in April. He comes in, and listen, we've seen it. We've had players that come in older and contribute right away, but he brings a lot of the things that you would want. And as we we don't know what the Bulls are looking at. Are they drafting based off potential, uh, the highest potential that they see in the player? Are they trying to fill a need, maybe that bench scoring need they feel they can fill with an older rookie in that with that 18th pick? We don't really know the route that the Chicago Bulls are going to go. Are they going to try to move up, move down in the draft? We don't really know. Now, I will say this is that a lot of the things that we've seen, and I've said this before, I have a conspiracy theory. A lot of the players that you hear the Bulls have already interviewed or have workout scheduled with are projected to go really late or to mid second round. And so, are they just doing their due diligence, or is there something? Is that signifying some type of deal coming in? We'll get it. That's a Haize conspiracy theory. So we'll get on that at some point. But Jalen Brunson brings in a player that you can see being a bench scorer, not just a bench scorer, a solid bench player for you who can play that 2-3 as he puts on weight, right? Can fill in either position. That's one of the key things with this Bulls roster, especially as they do we know? Are they avoiding the luxury tax? Are they just going to, even if they go into the luxury tax, are they going to try to keep that tax bill as low as possible? So filling in roles from the bench with older rookies makes sense. Still, my pick, I would love to see EJ Liddell wear a Bulls uniform, but looking at what Jalen Williams has and the skill set that he has, he does project at least right away to be able to come in and if not necessarily be that scorer that you trust to put on the floor. Now, I do think that that's his overall projection and what you would want to get out of him is if you don't have him in as a starter, you want him to be that bench player that comes in, can play defense, can do some ball handling, that can come in and score the ball for you. But his initial role on the Chicago Bulls, if he ends up being the pick, may very well be that bench scorer that come in and be able to shoot the ball at a high efficiency. Really let Alex Caruso and Ayo Dosunmu run the offense coming off the bench, but really allow Jalen Williams to maybe run around, come off screens, really let other players create for him while he's a rookie and while he gets acclimated in there. I think Jalen Williams will be a hell of a talent for the Chicago Bulls to bring in. Just looking at everything that he has, the skill set that he has, the total package of what Jalen Williams could offer now and in the future, he would be a solid pick for the Chicago Bulls. Now, again, as I said before, not necessarily my number one option for the Chicago Bulls, not necessarily the player that I would go in there and say, "Hey, this is the target, this is the player that I want to see the Bulls draft over anybody else." I can think of even in that 18 range about three players that I would like to see the Bulls pick before that. But hey, AK and Eversley are much smarter than me when it comes to this. They have an eye on, they know what direction they're going with the team and what they want to get out of this pick. And Jalen Williams could very well possibly be everything that they are looking at, especially as you're looking for. Most of us expect Kobe White to be replaced at some point, even if he's still on the roster for the Bulls, not to depend on him as much. But I think most of us do think that Kobe White is going to be traded this offseason. And if that is, Jalen Williams comes in and looks to be more competent at a lot of what Kobe already gives you right away. Better passer than Kobe, better defender than Kobe, better defensive skills than Kobe, or a better defensive potential than Kobe right away. Even if Jalen Williams comes in and he just does not get the speed and athleticism of the NBA game, as that slows down for him, you can see Jalen Williams being a better on ball defender than what Kobe White is. Now, Kobe's taking strides defensively in his third year, and we're going to continue to hopefully see that as well. And like I said before, I'm not one of those people who are completely down on Kobe. I don't think Kobe is necessarily going to be a bust. I just think that hey, he may need to go to a team that is going to be able to afford him more minutes when he's playing bad. But listen, he shot the Bulls in some games this season. He shot the ball out of some games this season. But I look at Jalen Williams and think, hey, if the Bulls are looking to replace Kobe White, if that's what they're looking for, Jalen Williams offers a lot of that right away. And because he's bigger with that bigger wingspan, he also can play potentially more positions for the Chicago Bulls. And as Billy Donovan is still the head coach of the Chicago Bulls, we know he likes to and will play players out of positions that may be natural for them. And Jalen Williams projects to do that. I still think EJ Liddell is a better overall prospect and a better pick for the Chicago Bulls at that position. But Jalen Williams is somebody that I can definitely see that. But I want to hear from you guys. Sound off down below. What do you think about Jalen Williams' potential as being the pick for the Chicago Bulls? Who would you like to see? Just off the top, I know I named some names. Definitely EJ Liddell, who I've been very vocal on. I would even say Kendall Brown is probably a pick that I would like to see at that position more than Jalen Williams, Marjon Beechip as well as somebody who I see a lot of potential in. And we've already talked about it. There's a lot of overlap with his skill set, with DeMar DeRozan's skill set. Not really a 3-point shooter, but I think it has a higher ceiling as well. And I'll tell you somebody who I'm really coming along with as well. And we'll cover him at some point here is Walker Kessler and what he offers defensively as a big man on the next level, is specifically as a shot blocking and high rebounding ratio big. But again, that's my thoughts on Jalen Williams. Let me know what you guys think about Jalen Williams there. All right, let's go ahead. We are now going to get into our last topic for today, and that is the Eastern Conference Finals. Listen, the Miami Heat and Boston Celtics gave us a great 7-game series in which I think we can really look at and realize, hey, the Bulls were further off. Even when they were playing their best, they're a lot further off than what we were given credit for, man. Because that was just a hell of a series. And the Boston Celtics going to their first NBA Finals, Jason Tatum and led by him and what this team can do, as hopefully Robert Williams gets a little bit more healthy. They're going to need it facing the Golden State Warriors. The finals start, I believe, June 2nd, so we're only a few days away from the finals starting, playing the Warriors. That game last night, as that game was coming down the stretch, and as it looked like the Miami Heat were going to go on a run that could potentially take over that game, I love Jimmy Butler. And, regardless of the way that, he left the Chicago Bulls, um, I just love Jimmy Butler as a player who came in with really no expectations to be even a third of the player that he turned into. And he worked himself, turned himself into one of the hardest working players and a superstar in the NBA. Like that just goes to show what hard work and determination can get you. As we even look at the Bulls having the 18th overall pick, and some people thinking, well, they can't get an impact player there. They drafted an impact player, and where they drafted Jimmy Butler. It just sucks that he didn't end up having his biggest impact on the Chicago Bulls roster. But you can't knock anything Jimmy Butler did. At points in this series, being hurt, dealing with injuries, things like that, turning in huge games in which he almost won the games himself. Listen, Bam as well. Not just, Tyler Hero didn't necessarily show up. I think in some ways that people do. Victor Oladipo may very well have worked himself into getting paid this offseason when some of the ways that he played in this playoffs and in this series as well. They just did not have enough. When it came down to it, the Boston Celtics were able to hold on, stave off that run from the Miami Heat in the fourth quarter, and the Boston Celtics are going on to get the honor to lose to the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals. Listen, and while it is expected, I think most of us do expect the Golden State Warriors to really beat the Boston Celtics and be able to come out that series and win. Steph Curry winning his 4th title at that point. Um, I think that most of us do expect that to happen, that it could happen. But I tell you what, this Boston Celtics team, they find a way, right? Marcus Smart is just, man, like just to think at one point in time, people were saying the Boston Celtics should trade Marcus Smart, and just look at the player that he turned himself into as well. Coming in the league being primarily just a defender and just being somebody he's just a damn good basketball player, right? Jason Tatum, we it already knows from St. Louis. You guys already know I lived in St. Louis for a long time, so I do love some Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown as well. Like I said, Robert Williams didn't have the best series, right? But he needs to get more healthy. We know he's coming back from injury. Al Horford and what he's able to give at this age and stuff, like the fact that Al Horford came into the league the same year, played in college with Joakim Noah. Joakim's out the league, and Al Horford is still doing these type of things, averaging damn near double-double this season for the Boston Celtics. But yeah, and we know Joe had injury issues, whereas Al Horford didn't really have a lot of those over his career. That wasn't a shot at my favorite Bull of all time in Joakim Noah. But it's just great to see. This is just a good thing for basketball. And yeah, the finals may very well be predictable. You will see how many games the Boston Celtics can push it to. But I'll tell you what, while I'm expecting the Warriors to win in probably 5, that's just my pick right now. We'll see what happens when they actually start playing games. I would not be surprised if the Boston Celtics do, even if it does go 5, that they push the Golden State Warriors in every single one of those games. The Warriors may win every single game of this series, right? It may not even go to 5, but I do expect the Boston Celtics to be able to put in a solid fight. Um, and we'll see what happens with the finals. And we're heading into that. Unfortunately, we're about to head into, and sports fans need to be aware, into that complete lull in sports for the most part, besides baseball. Like, it's about to really be, once the NBA finals are over. Well, yeah, we have the draft to look forward to, but then we got a large gap between that and free agency, and then summer league and things like that. NFL still has what we got till August till the NFL preseason starts. This is about to be some dark times for sports fans, and hopefully, we keep those conversations going with you, and we'll help stave off that withdrawal from sports that some of us may get here in a couple of months. Stay tuned in the Locked On Bulls. Me and Pat will continue to break everything down as we continue our draft coverage over the next week or so. Then we'll get to move into our free agent coverage and what we see, what free agents potentially we see coming to the Chicago Bulls as that picture becomes more clear. I think, especially after the draft, it's a lot more to see what route the Chicago Bulls go in the draft. It'll be a lot more easy to break down what free agents that we see the Bulls going after, what some of their targets may be. But hey, that is it for me for today, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls. Thank you for making Locked On Bulls your first listen every day. Now, for your second listen, go and tune into Locked On NBA, where the Locked On experts got you covered on everything from the playoff coverage to just anything affecting all 30 teams in the NBA. And they're available wherever you listen to this podcast at. That's where you can get Locked On NBA as well. Also, tune in to Locked On Mavs, especially if you want to hear any more conversation around the Zach LaVine signing trade. I'm sure they'll be giving their side of it here coming up shortly. But you guys can follow me. You already know, at CEO Haize, at CEO Haize. You can follow the podcast collectively at Locked On Bulls on every social media platform we're on. Make sure you tune in. Rate the podcast if you're listening on the podcast side. Leave comments if you're on the YouTube side. We love you guys. Thank you for the interaction. Thank you for supporting us so much. For Pat the Designer, I'm CEO Haize. This has been Locked On Bulls, and we're out. Peace, y'all.